Hola, amigos. Welcome to Spain Impossible. I'm your host, Jim. Today, we are going to be talking about the three autonomous communities in Spain that I am personally looking at, the cost of living expenses in those autonomous communities. So, I'm going to be sharing with you just a little bit of the research that I've been doing. First, let's do the old subscribe, because Spain Impossible is about three main things. And I'm sure that you can connect with one of those three main things: moving to Spain from the US, losing 100 pounds in a year, or getting out of a mountain of debt from some healthcare issues that my family had last year. So smash the old thumbs up button. Let YouTube know that this old fart might have something nice to share with other people so that this spreads out far and wide. I would appreciate it. Let's dive right in. Now, the three main communities that I am looking at, Spain is divided into autonomous communities, and there are 17 of them, and they all vary. They're all completely different. Some of them even have their own languages. Some of them even have, obviously some of them are in the north where the weather is different than in the south. Spain is a large country and there is plenty of space for everyone. But the three main ones that I am looking at is number one is Extremadura, and number two is Andalusia, and number three is Valenciana. So in Extremadura, we're talking very small communities. It's got a very desert-like um, climate to it, which I like. I prefer dry heat to wet heat, but it's also small communities. There's, I think, only two major cities in Extremadura: Andalusia, southern coast of Spain, 300 plus days of sunshine a year. What's not to like about that? You've got big cities like Malaga. You've got what I would consider kind of suburban areas of those stretching out from there in Benalmádena, Torremolinos, Fuengirola. You've got further out to the west, you've got Marbella, Estepona, Sotogrande, Manilva. So there are many communities of different size to choose from in Andalusia. And you've got all the inland areas as well. Andalusia is the largest of the autonomous communities, and a lot of it is mountains. But there are little communities that dot all of these areas in the mountains that are wonderful little places. They have the Pueblos Blancos, which are the white villages. They have, Ronda, which is famous for bridging the gorge that's in the mountain there. And they've just got great, great stuff. I don't know if you can tell this or not, but I kind of like Andalusia. And then Valenciana is a little bit further east. It kind of sits between Malaga and Barcelona, where Valencia is. Um, Valencia is the main large area there. There are several smaller cities. It also sits along the coast, so there are several communities along the coast there that are in Valenciana. So, but let's look at what we can find out, what I found through my research in terms of what kind of expenses are we talking about there. For housing is always the biggest thing. So our biggest expense every month is going to be either rent or purchase of a house. So I'll flash a little table up here, but rent for a one bedroom in the city center, Extremadura, we're talking 400 to 600 euros. Ooh, that hits my sweet spot in my pocketbook, if you know what I'm saying. But there are some other issues that you've got to look into there. Transportation may not be as good. There's no access to the coast because it's kind of landlocked. So it's an area that's definitely worth looking into. In Andalusia, we're talking between $700 to $1,200 a month, and it's dependent upon the area that you choose, and how far you are from the coast. Like I said, Andalusia is a very large place, and we're talking about an overview of cost of living in an autonomous community. So there are some smaller towns in the mountains that mix into that $700 or 700 euro mark there. And when you look at Valenciana, 800 to 11,000, 1,200 in the city of Valencia. They're going to be higher, obviously, but this looks at the community, the autonomous region as a whole. So there is places in that region where that can be had for $800 a month, which is excellent, depending on what you're looking for. I myself am looking for probably a beach area, or at least walking distance to the beach, because I love to listen to the ocean waves, and I love to watch the sunset and things like that. So it's Extremadura, while it's very, while it offers value for money, what is the area like? I've never been there personally. I've never been to Spain personally. So I'm doing all of this research, and there will be a trip to Spain upcoming to look at these areas. But these are the areas from my research that I have settled on as the three main areas that I want to spend my time looking at. I live in the northern US, so people will say, well, what about the north of Spain? There's great things up there. Yes, there are great things up there. But my number one reason for moving from where I am to Spain is sunshine and good weather. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a place where it's warm in the winter, or warm enough in the winter, not below zero temperatures. I'm not looking for a lot of rain in the winter. I'm not looking for a lot of snow in the winter. I've had plenty of that my whole life. So where you look may be something different from where I look. So, and that's why I covered in my other video some of the main areas, like Madrid and Barcelona, things like that. So rent when you get outside the city area in these communities is even lower. And when you're talking purchase of a property, it really goes by the price per meter square. So in Extremadura, you're looking at 1,000 to 1,500 per meter squared. Andalusia, 2,000 to 5,000, and I've seen higher than 5,000, especially when you're in Marbella and some of the villas and things like that. So it all depends on what you want to spend when you're purchasing. And Valencia, the Valenciana community is around 2,000 to 3,500. So there are deals to be found. It just depends on where exactly you're looking in Spain and what you are looking for. There's plenty of people that want to go over there and get a Spanish driver's license and have a vehicle and all those things. And I'm just not really wanting to do that. So if you want to have a vehicle, obviously your options open up. If you're okay with taking a 20 or 30 minute drive to get to the beach area or longer, that is not really where I'm going. Where I'm going to live is where I'm going to live, and I'm going to do as much as I can by my feet. So when we look at utilities in these different communities, Extremadura is a little bit lower. When I was looking into it, it does maybe have something to do with the fact that the apartments and homes are a little bit smaller, size-wise. So they run about 80 to 110 a month. Andalusia runs about 90 to 130 a month. And Valenciana somewhere between 100 and 140 a month. Slightly higher in Valencia itself. So grocery wise, groceries are an important part of why I'm moving to Spain, having access to the fresh produce and things of that nature in a much more farm to table way, let's put it. Extremadura, we're looking at about 150 to 180. And that's one of the lowest communities in Spain. And that's thanks to the local agriculture and they have very few imported goods in that region. So most everything is grown locally and sold locally. Andalusia, we're a little bit higher at 170 to 220 a month. And there's plenty of local produce, especially in the rural areas, because they grow a lot of produce there. Valenciana, very similar to Andalusia, and it will be slightly higher in Valencia and Alicante areas, just because I would assume that I find it higher there because the produce has to come a little bit further. You know, the farms are further out in the country, so it's coming into town. Transportation wise in these communities, you know, public transport monthly passes in Extremadura, you've got Badajoz and you've got Caceres. They're, you know, 25 to 35, and their transportation there does seem to be a little bit more limited. In Andalusia, in Malaga and Sevilla, you're looking at 35 to 55 euros a month. In Valenciana, in Valencia and Alicante, you're looking at $40 to $50 a month. You know, when we look at car ownership, it's more common in Extremadura because it's much more rural and the towns are fewer and farther between. And, you know, if you're living in a major city, obviously car ownership is not really a deal because they're so well connected. There's so much good public transport in, you know, places like Malaga and Alicante and Valencia. So I didn't really look at overall pricing of cars and car insurance and stuff like that because it's really not on my radar. I will do an in-depth dive on it at some point in time because I want to learn, you know, how much does it cost to go through driver's training in Spain, which you have to go through, even as an expat that's been driving for, you know, 35 years. Which is kind of one of the reasons why I don't want to do it. I don't really want to go through driver's training again. I was in transportation. I've driven over 1,000,000 miles in my life and haven't had an accident in years, knock on wood. So eating out and entertainment, dining out, entertainment costs, you know, meals at a mid-range restaurant, obviously you can spend much higher. Obviously there are places that are a little bit cheaper. In Extremadura, we're looking at 8 to 15 euros. Andalusia, 10 to 20 euros. And in Valenciana, 10 to 18 euros. So, you know, again, along the coast, these communities are a little bit pricier than farther inland, but not absorbently so. So, you know, I looked at healthcare, and these are general numbers. I did not actually request quotes like I did in my other video. When I requested that quote, I did put in that I was going to be 55, and that it was going to be in the Costa del Sol region. So regions affect healthcare costs, as well as age affects healthcare costs. So in Extremadura, we're looking at about $40 to $60 a month. In Andalusia, $50 to $70 a month, and Valenciana, $50 to $70 a month. So you can see there is a little bit of a cost savings there by being away from the coast. And I don't know if that has to do with the storms or the major cities or what it is. It's just the way the health insurance works. And that is for private insurance. As you know, Spain has public health care as well. Which after you've moved there and you become a tax resident, you can qualify for. A lot of expats opt to continue to hold private insurance simply because of the fact that most of the private insurance hospitals and doctors do speak English. So if you're not interested in getting in-depth in Spanish like I am, I plan on taking classes once I'm over to Spain. I'm doing what I can here at home, but I will eventually, when I move to Spain, actually take Spanish classes because I want to learn to speak like a local. I don't want to be somebody who's, you know, just a tourist. I want to be somebody who has lived and integrated in the community that I choose to live in. So lifestyle, you know, gym memberships, I use my feet for the gym, or I use weight-bearing exercise, but people are interested in gym memberships. Again, here, Extremadura is a little bit lower in the $20 to $30 a month range. Sorry, euros. I'm trying to get that figured out in my brain. Andalucia and Valenciana are just a little bit more expensive at $30 to $40, $45 a month for a gym membership. So it's not huge differences once you're in slightly more populous communities. And Extremadura is not an outlier by any means. There are other autonomous communities that happen to be more rural in Spain, and they are much cheaper than Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Malaga, the places that have major cities and major attractions like the coast and things like that. It's just one of the three that I'm looking at currently. So in Extremadura is obviously the most affordable overall, lowest rent, lowest groceries, lowest eating out. It's much more rural. It's much less touristy. So that Spanish will be a necessity to live somewhere in Extremadura. The international amenities are going to be much fewer there because they just don't import as much stuff. You know, when we're talking about Andalucia, which is where I'm leaning right now, particularly Estepona and westward, Manilva and Puerto de la Quesa, those are a little bit pricier and they have a much more tourist activity level to them, particular in June, July, and August, but they're still affordable compared to Madrid and Barcelona. Utilities and groceries are reasonable, and lifestyle costs are, you know, kind of in the middle somewhere. They're not super expensive, they're not super cheap. And, you know, that goes the same without saying for Valenciana. It's very similar to the Andalusian coast, you know, with the major cities being more expensive within the region, and the more rural and smaller towns are much cheaper. So, you know, it all depends on what you're looking for. And I myself have my list of things that I'm looking for, as I'm sure you will have your list of things that you're looking for. And there are trade-offs to everywhere. Like if I love Estepona or Manilva and end up moving there, I know that in June, July, and August, I'm going to have to deal with the population of these towns swelling at least double, triple, maybe even sometimes quadruple because of the tourist season. And you have to be okay with that, or you have to, you know, own a place and rent it out during the summer and live in it during the winter, which is an idea. And, you know, going forward from there, you know, Extremadura would be more of a, for me, like an escape to the quiet, you know, a small town, mountainous area, you know, lots of walking trails, lots of things to do. But then I have to consider, you know, I'm probably going to need a car, which is something that I've kind of, you know, put on my list. Like, I don't want to have a car, but I do like the area from what I've researched, and I will be going there when I go to Spain. And, you know, the Valenciana area, there's Valencia is amazing from what I've seen, and it would be great, but I'm not looking to be in a city of that size. So I'm more of a small town person. I don't like the big city type stuff, and that holds true for my trip, my moving to Spain. I'm just not interested in the big cities. Like when I first discovered Spain, it was around Malaga, and I was like, okay, well, what else is around there? Because I don't want to be in a big city, but I want to be able to get to the big city, you know, for the lights at Christmas and to see some of the architecture and things like that, because I love these not ancient, historical architectures that are in Spain. They're freaking amazing. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. It's another reason why I'm moving to Spain. And also the connectivity to the rest of Europe. I want to go to Italy, and I want to go to Greece, and I want to go to, you know, Albania, and I want to go to Vienna, and I want to go to Poland, and but I want to be able to have access to these places in a much easier way. That's some of the reasons why I'm moving to Spain. Anyways, this video has dragged on long enough. Hopefully you guys got value from this. Hopefully you learned a little bit along the way listening to this old coot ramble. Subscribe to the channel, give me the old thumbs up so YouTube knows that, hey, I might have something decent to share with the community here. And as always, if you got value from this, pop over to the Buy Me a Coffee and help me keep all of my stuff free. If you're interested in the weight loss stuff, I will put somewhere in here, a link to the Start Here on the weight loss series that I'm doing. Again, down 38.8 pounds at the end of 13 weeks, and it's fantastic. It's super easy. I love doing it. So I'm never hungry. I don't worry about stuff like that. So, it's going to be one hell of a journey, guys. Come along with me for this journey and keep following, because once I move to Spain, I'm going to be doing all kinds of travel content in Spain and Europe and stuff like that. So stay with me. It's going to be a journey. Hasta luego.